Hi guys, welcome back. So we'll continue with the video editing series. Now in this chapter, I'll talk more about how we can do a rough cut. And this is also a chapter that I'll be presenting to you the concept of using keyboard shortcuts or hotkeys. If it depends on the terminologies that you're familiar with. But keyboard shortcuts are essential. Learning keyboard shortcuts are very essential when it comes to speeding up your workflow and helping you edit in a much more smoother fashion. Okay, so there'll be a few shortcuts that I'll introduce to you, primarily the cut tool, also known as the blade tool, the select tool, range tool, so on and so forth. Okay, so another thing that I want to talk about is the concept of rough cut. So when you begin to edit anything, okay, you are typically looking at a lot of raw footages. Okay, sometimes it's a very long take. Sometimes there's 100 footages that you need to look at one by one, and then you need to piece your whole puzzle together. So to sort of have a good idea on what your final edit will look like, you need to go through all those files and watch them, each of them. Okay, now some would be easier to discard than others, but after you've selected the ones that you're going to use, then your first assembly would be to come up with a rough cut. Okay, now what a rough cut means is basically you're taking away the extra bits and pieces at the beginning and at the end, and you're taking away the bad takes of that video file itself. So I'm going to use this video that I shot in the studio just before the circuit breaker period started, just before we went on a break, and I'm going to run you through how I do a rough cut. Now there are certain times in a video where I'll speed it up so that I won't take so much of your time, going through all those cuts and everything together. So essentially what you're looking at here, let me just select the whole video. All right. And pull it down. Okay, so we'll start the timeline with the entire video. Now, the entire length of the video is about 10 minutes. Okay. Now, as I press certain keyboard shortcuts, you'll see it appear on screen. So that will give you an idea of what I'm doing. So Command plus, I'm essentially expanding the timeline. Command minus, I'm making it shorter. Okay, so what you can do is you're sort of browsing it through. And notice here, I like to start my takes. I typically like to start my takes using a clap. Okay, so those spikes typically, although it's helpful when it comes to syncing audio, it is also very good when you're trying to know or have a sort of a marker in your waveform to tell you that that is a cut or that is a next take. Okay, so that helps you go through each of them one by one and helps you cut through things a little bit quicker. So the video is obviously called, what I've stated here is 10 tips for to practice when it comes to good online teaching. Okay, so that means there's 10 segments to the video, including an introduction that probably does 11. So I need to look for about anywhere between 10 cuts or more to sort of make segments into the video that makes it easier for me to edit. So there'll be a lot of jump cuts here. And it's for this to be uploaded on YouTube, jump cuts are quite expected. Okay, so going back to this, I'll sort of skim through it and we'll see where this goes. Okay, so this is obviously the beginning where I'm setting up the camera. So there's no need for that. And let's just start playing here.
I've taught online in some capacity, and you probably realize by now that the way you normally teach your lessons is not quite the same when doing it online. I mean, awkward silences, your mic is not working, recording is not working, your neighbor is shouting in the next door.
Better.
I mean, the list of problems can be endless. So I'd like to share 10 good practices that hopefully can help you out for your courses. Let's go.
So there you go. So there's a long pause right there. So that tells me that that's one area that I can consider cutting. So what I can do is I can go to my tools panel, which is located right here. All right, and then run down, you'll see a various range of tools. You can zoom in, you can use your hand tool to move your timeline about. You can select a range with range selection. You can go back to A for your standard default cursor. or you can use the blade tool. So right now, I'm going to start using the blade tool, and you see me using the blade tool very often because that is the quickest way for you to cut through clips very fast. A blade tool is known by other names in other editors. So if you're using Premiere Pro, for example, it might be known as the razor tool. So it might be called differently, but essentially their function is exactly the same, to cut clips. Okay, so don't start thinking about putting in effects or putting in transitions at this moment. Just think of that rough cut everything off first, trim the fat off first, and then you see where you can enhance the video even better. So I'm going to press B for blade. Okay, and here I'm just going to give a cut. Okay, so what I will do is I'll expand the video. All right, so I know now that at the beginning, okay, I can sort of cut here. This is also useless. I can delete this, and we'll see where it starts.
Hi, academics.
There you go. So that's also something that I can't use. So I'll cut there again. So again, we'll see where it goes.
By now, you probably have taught online in some capacity, and you
Great. So that all the way until here tells me that I can cut here as well. So I've already made a cut here, so I can go to the end of this section and I can bring it shorter. So basically I'm trimming the range of the video even shorter using the range selection or the trim tool. Okay, so you can do it a few ways. If you prefer, you can also, again, using blade tool, cut it right here, go back to select and just press delete from there. Okay, so now going to the next one.
make course adjustments.
There you go. So blade tool, cut the intro, trim the fat. Okay.
Run through your syllabus and see if they fit an online delivery medium. If not, make adjustments to your course contents. This can be as simple as changing your PowerPoint designs or making assessment changes.
There you go. So that's obviously a bad take. Okay, so that entire chunk of information, I can't use it. So as you notice here, there's a big gap of information, right? So what I can do is I can immediately know that this is already a bad take. So I can just cut it right here, click the entire and press delete again. Okay.
Take two.
Now in this case, I gave myself a take two.
Hi academics, by now you probably have taught online in some capacity.
So that showed that I restarted the whole shoot again. So it gave me an option. Now it's giving me an option to choose between two takes. So let's see if this is better.
Recording's not working, your neighbor is shouting at the next door. I mean, the list of problems can be endless. So I'd like to take this video to share 10 good practices that hopefully can help you out for your courses. Let's go.
There you go. So personally, to me, I think the second take is better. So I'm just going to delete the first one. All right. And now, again, with the second one. So you know that there's all these gaps right here. You can just choose to delete them right away.
Number one, make course adjustments. Run through your system to obtain the necessary approval before making key changes.
There you go. So that sounds like a good first take. Let's cut that, move to the next one. So you notice that I'm using my keyboard shortcuts. There's no need for me to again go through the tool selection, select the tool and press it again. So if you game a lot, you know how important keyboard shortcuts are, right? So learn your keyboard shortcuts using whatever editing platform that you use. So keep scrolling and then go to the next one.
Number two, familiarize yourself with the delivery platform. Institutions deploy different interfaces: Zoom, Skype, Microsoft Teams, and in the case of PSB Academy, Blackboard. Whilst most video conferencing functionality are similar, they might differ in the way you operate the little things like adjusting the mic settings, changing the role of an attendee to a moderator. Take time to familiarize yourself so you will not end up looking clueless when going live.
There you go. So that sounds like another good take, right? All right, trim the fat and start with the third one.
Number three, the audio matters more.
Let's scroll here.
Now, most of us would probably think that what matters most is a good camera, right? Wrong. Audio clarity is far more important element to get right. I mean, think about it. We usually can tolerate moderate video quality if the audio is good, but we can never tolerate poor audio no matter how good the video is. Most laptops will have audio and video capabilities built in, but in general, the quality is rather poor. This can be concerning if your work will live online for a very long time. So if you have a little bit of extra money, invest on an external mic, or ask if you can borrow one from the management. You can also use the mic-equipped earphones that come with your phone. This is still miles better than your laptop mic.
There you go. So there's a bit of a gap there. So I'm going to go back here.
This is still miles better than your laptop mic. And overall, it will boost your audio quality considerably when students are listening or playing back the recording. A quick note on webcams: the quality will generally be bad if you're not well lit. So just park yourself in a well lit area, preferably in front of a window, and you'll be fine. Number 4.
Okay. So let's go back to the end. All right. So that seems to be a pretty good take for the entire one. So let's go to number 4 now.
Number 4.
So now I could let it continue, right? It seems to be a pretty smooth transition. There's no awkward silences here. But for the sake of, to make it easier for me to know what number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, right? I'm just going to do a cut. I'm just still going to insist on doing a cut here.
Prepare your teaching materials early. Nothing is worse than fiddling around your file system in your computer, searching for notes to show your students once you are already live. This will waste time and risk losing engagement from students. Prepare your notes and upload them ahead of time where possible. This only requires you to be at your laptop 15 to 20 minutes earlier before the start of session.
Okay, another good one. And the next.
Number 5, mind your setting. Just because you're teaching at home does not mean that you're keeping your posture.
All right, there's a gap here. So again. So you're seeing, I hope you're seeing a pattern by now that I'm basically trimming the fat at the beginning and at the end of each take so that it becomes a more spontaneous and a more consistent tempo. Okay, there's no awkward silences in between. You're removing all the empty, you're removing the rubbish essentially. Okay, so we're halfway there, and apparently there's might be a pretty bad take here. So let's have a look.
Now that you're ready to start teaching, here's what you should do during your lessons. Number 6. Number 6, encourage everyone to turn on the camera. Now, the introvert in us would typically prefer not to share the video feed from our webcam.
So I'm going to start speeding up now so that you can, you don't have to bear the whole video cutting process with me. All right. So I'll see where this goes. So there we go. From a video that was roughly about 10 to 12 minutes long, I've trimmed it down to now what we have is about 6 minutes. Okay. Now the rough cut is by no means the final product, and what it basically is, it's basically a very rough version of what your film will look like, narrative wise and shot by shot wise. Okay. Now is the time for you to sort of start seasoning, start fine-tuning everything by adding your transitions, adding your effects, adding color correction, so on and so forth. Your titles, if there is a need to do any of them, all these kind of things. So that's basically it for this chapter. I'll talk to you again in the next one.